Greetings, dear viewers. Get ready to embark on an unforgettable adventure as we take you on a nail-biting journey into the enigmatic depths of Humboldt's foreboding wilderness. Join us as we recount a story about a brave hunter, intrepid campers, and an unseen terror lurking in the shadows. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons, and leave a comment to let us know if the story sent chills down your spine. And remember to hit that notification bell to stay up to date on our latest videos. So sit tight and prepare to be amazed as we explore the hauntingly beautiful, yet treacherous, forests of Humboldt. Back in 2021, my dad and I took on the ultimate hunting challenge during deer hunting season in the desolate and mysterious woods of Humboldt, California. The trek was grueling and treacherous, but we were determined to make the most of our trip. As we journeyed deeper into the woods, we noticed something peculiar. The forest was deathly peaceful. The trees stood tall and lifeless, leaving us with little hope of finding any game. After 3 days filled with gloom, damp, and dreariness, we decided to stop for the day and set up camp. But little did we know that we were not alone in those woods. An unseen terror lurked in the shadows, waiting to pounce on its unsuspecting prey. Would we make it out alive? Or would we become just another terrifying tale of the woods of Humboldt? As we sat huddled together in our tent, the darkness descended upon us, bringing with it a gloomy feeling that something was not right. Suddenly, a howl pierced through the silent night, sending chills down our spines. It was not a sound that one would expect to hear in the woods at this hour. The howl was almost human, but there was an underlying growl that made it clear that this was no ordinary creature. My dad and I lay there motionless, hardly daring to breathe, as another howl rang out, closer this time. We could hear branches snapping and leaves rustling as something made its way toward our tent. My heart pounding, I whispered to my dad, "Did you hear that?" His reply was barely audible. Yeah. Fearful that it would hear us, we remained silent, straining to listen to any movement outside. Slowly, the howling subsided, and we were left alone in the darkness. The next morning, we tried to shake off the memory of the previous night's events, but the feeling of dread lingered. As we prepared to embark, we encountered 2 forest rangers who seemed surprisingly unconcerned by the previous night's events. They were dressed in uniform, straps of rifles slinging from their shoulders, and moved towards the direction of the mournful Crees. Unsure of what to do, we decided to explore the lower regions of the woods, convinced that the danger lurked in the higher reaches of Little North Mountain and not below. But little did we know, it was not just a mere howl that roamed in those woods. Days passed before we set up camp again, much lower than the previous location. It was the perfect spot for hunting game, and we were crossing our fingers that we would be able to make it up after the previous day's fruitless pursuits. As my dad and I settled into our new camp, the same feeling of unease swept over us. The woods seemed just as silent, just as barren. But something was different. Something was out there, and we could feel its presence. It wasn't until the second night that the horror began again. The howl started up again, this time even louder and closer. The sound ricocheted off the trees, and we could hear footsteps coming closer to our camp. But this time, it didn't end like the first. In an instant, a powerful force ripped through the tent, dragging my dad out with it. I could hear his screams mixed with the howl of that ungodly creature. The next morning, I found my father's body, mutilated and disfigured. The jagged teeth and the teeth marks all over his body suggested an animal attack, only this was nothing like any animal I've ever seen. The bites were deep and punctured, and there was no sign of struggle. It was as if something had crept up on him in the middle of the night when he was most vulnerable. Suddenly, I heard that howling again, and I ran for my life until I couldn't. It showed itself to me, but before I could scream for help, the thing with its huge claws swiped my throat. As I gasped for air, feeling my life ebbing away, a strange sense of calm overtook me. It was what they called the moment of clarity, where everything seems to slow down. I looked up and saw the creature standing over me, its eyes blazing with a malevolent fire. And as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished into the darkness. As I took my last breath, I felt my spirit leave my body, rising up and away from the forest floor. Everything was different now that I was a ghost, and I could feel an intense desire to protect those who ventured into the woods. As a spirit, I was free to move about the forest, and I made it my mission to haunt those who dared to enter the woods. I appeared as a flickering figure in the shadows, warning people to leave the area before it was too late. I knew that there were more people like my father and me, people who had no idea of the danger that lurked in these woods. As I haunted them, I could sense a faint flicker of recognition in their eyes, almost as if they knew that something wasn't right. And so, I continued to roam the woods, warning people and protecting them from that creature that had taken my life. In a way, I felt like I had been given a second chance to make things right. Then one day, as I continued to wander the woods, I could sense the presence of a group of hunters approaching. They were loud and boisterous, almost as if they had no respect for the woods they were in. I could feel my anger rising within me, knowing that they were putting themselves in danger. As they set up their camp, I could hear them joking about the warnings they had heard about the forest, dismissing it as mere superstition. I felt the need to warn them, to tell them to leave before it was too late. But as soon as the sun set, the forest grew darker, and the woods took on an ominous air. The howls started up again, more prolonged and louder than before. I knew that what was coming would be far worse than anything they had ever encountered, and I could feel the fear in their hearts. As they tried to brush off the howls as just a wild animal, a creature appeared out of nowhere, much larger and more menacing than anything they had seen before. It had black fur covering its body, glowing eyes, and long pointed teeth that shone in the darkness. The hunters realized with terror that they were no match for this creature, and as it attacked, they fought valiantly, but to no avail. As they fell to the ground, the last thing they heard was my warning, a chilling wail that echoed through the forest. I knew then that the creature had claimed yet another victim, and my heart sank. I knew that I had to redouble my efforts, warning anyone who dared to venture into these woods. For as long as that creature roamed these woods, people needed to know what lurked in the shadows, and I would do everything in my power to protect them. But as I continued to wander the woods, my anger boiled, knowing that there were still people who ignored the warnings, putting themselves in grave danger and dismissing the tales of the travelers who never returned. I could only hope that my warnings would be heeded, and that these woods would be left alone to protect the travelers who dared to take on the unknown and prevent them from suffering the same fate as my father and those before him. Finally, after years of haunting the woods and protecting countless travelers, I sensed something different. The air grew thick with tension as a familiar howl pierced through the silence, eliciting an eerie response from within me. I knew it was the creature, and it was coming towards me. With trembling form, I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation as the creature loomed closer, radiating malice. Its eyes, blazing with a malevolent fire, bore into me as it let out an ear-piercing roar. I could barely keep my wits about me as I stood my ground, staring it down, ready to face the ultimate challenge that would decide my fate. The creature lunged forward with lethal speed, its claws making a sickening sound as they scraped the forest floor. We clashed with violent ferocity. It was a battle that seemed to stretch on for eternity, each blow measured with precise calculations and countered with increasing rage. The sound of clashing fangs and piercing howls echoed through the trees as we tumbled back and forth, locked in an endless struggle. It seemed as though the creature would never yield. Eventually, my persistence paid off. With one final crushing blow, the creature lay defeated on the ground, its lifeless form. As I looked down upon the creature's body, I felt a sense of overwhelming relief wash over me as I knew my mission had been fulfilled. Finally, I could leave the forest to ascend to the afterlife and rest in peace, knowing that I had saved countless lives by warning people of the danger that lurked in those woods.